Far away in a deep dark forest near a clear pond.
She spent her days far away in a deep forest.
Far away in a deep dark forest near a clear pond lived a woman named Scarlet. She lived alone. She was one with the trees, shrubs, plants, and animals, and spent her day gathering herbs. Every full moon, Scarlet adorned herself in a festive red shawl and went to the reflecting pond. Then she leaned over, looked into the water, and saw the smiling other. It was on such a night, during the full moon, when the weather suddenly changed. There arose a violent storm, and a fearful other looked back at her from the deep pool. A flicker from the past. She remembered another world where she had left a child behind. Scarlet was shocked, and something inside of her unlocked. She cried out, "My child! I have get to my child!" Yes, it was time to go back to the world that she had left behind long ago. And armed with medicinal herbs, natural wisdom, her warm shawl wrapped around her, she set off. She walked and walked until she came to a crossroads. And out of nowhere, a young boy appeared. The boy said, "Dear Scarlet, don't hesitate. Follow this path." He gave her 3 objects, saying the words, "Here's a silver bell, which keeps you on your toes. This ring gives you strength, and the feather keeps you light. And note, it is the richness of your heart that counts." Scarlet put the objects deep into her pockets and went on her way, searching for her child. Not long thereafter, the violent storm returned. Scarlet grasped for a handhold, but the raging clouds lifted her up. "Please help me," she cried, but she was defenseless. The wind swept her towards the big city and threw her down on the sidewalk. Doink! There she was. What should she do? Lost, she walked around and looked around. It was cold, and she felt lonely. When she was crossing the road, a red Ferrari stopped for her. The man motioned her into the car, and before Scarlet could blink an eye, she was going with him. The man took her to a big house, and she soon found herself in a small back room with a red nightie on. What a world! She thought. It was like living in a daze. Drugs, involuntarily but surprisingly exciting sex put her on fire, and when she looked into her mirror, she thought, this is a quick way to earn money. But over time, the dream of her child returned, and she knew she had to pick up again. Scarlet decided to flee from the house. She grabbed her things and left in a hurry because she was afraid to be discovered. She ran and wasn't watching carefully. She tripped over a manhole cover and fell into a deep pit. Deeper and deeper, darker and darker. "Ouch!" someone said when Scarlet hit bottom. "Oh, excuse me," said Scarlet, and she saw a big, fat frog. "What? Who are you?" "Ah," said the frog, "I have been here for weeks, waiting for you. I need to talk to you because the way you are going, you never will have a story that will be a fairy tale. You've met me before. Why don't you use the charms I gave you?" I told you that your value is inside, but you're not listening. Sometimes you need to take the difficult path in life. Scarlet wept at these words, for she saw that the frog was right. Even though she had left in a hurry, she had wrapped the silver bell, the ring, the feather, and the herbs that give women faith in their own power in her red shawl. Scarlet thanked the frog boy, took the ring to illuminate the underground tunnel that lay ahead. So she came to a large door that was, to her horror, guarded by a fire-breathing dragon. But with the lesson of the frog boy still fresh in her mind, she knew that her herbs could stun the dragon and that she could use the feather to slip through that large door. In the gloom, she spied a gray, bleak landscape, completely burned, and amidst the landscape, an old house. Maybe I can rest here for a while, she thought to herself, and fell into a deep dream. And in this dream, she saw a sign. Danger! No access. She went forward anyway, and she saw a crib. And in the crib, a dead baby. Scarlet woke up screaming. Yes, the fire, the soot, the baby. Slowly and slightly numb, she got up from her deep sleep and looked around the house. Why had she forgotten? And she began to wash the windows. She could see her reflection becoming clearer and sharper. Oh, how have I ever gotten into the illusion of the timeless forest? How is it possible that my past has become covered with cobwebs? Faster and faster, she went to work and thus cleaned the whole house. And then she began to work the ashy, dry ground around the house. She dug for days until she was exhausted. She dug neat trenches, lugged water, and after a while saw that the seeds she had sown were starting to germinate. Until one sunny day, a thumping sound, ground shaking, men shouting. Scarlet saw a huge bulldozer coming straight at her. From the cabin above, a man looked at her and said, "So, it's true? There's life here?" She recognized his gentle eyes. An unfulfilled desire and vulnerability took possession of her. She looked at his smile. This smile seemed especially for her. "Let's start a business and distill your herbs," he suggested, and she was grateful. The herbs grew, were harvested and processed. But the longer they were together, the more he decided what was happening, and that could not end well. Little by little, she gave up her wisdom. And one day, when she once again had ignored her own wisdom, it all went wrong. The huge copper distilling kettle exploded with a loud bang, and the old house was in flames. Everything went up in flames, even her red shawl. There she stood. The man put his coat around her for comfort. He looked at her and said, "You must go alone again." And Scarlet knew he was right. And she turned to where the house had stood and stared into the void, and she started crying. She cried about the loss of the house. She cried that the man had to leave, and cried about the child she had lost. And then she cried for herself. Scarlet sat down on a stone and sat till her tears made the ground under her feet wet and fertile. And she stayed there on the stone, until the pain felt milder and her strength returned. The end.
She cried that the man had to leave, and cried about the child she had lost. And then she cried for herself. Scarlet sat down on the stone and said, still her tears made the ground under her feet wet and fertile. And she stayed there on the stone until the pain felt milder and her strength returned.